In this video, we're going to talk about the diagnostic evaluation of articulation and phonology, looking at the articulation assessment and the phonology assessment. So the actual full-on assessment for this particular test. What is really important that you take note is that for articulation and phonology, there are two different record forms. We're going to start with articulation, then we'll move into phonology. What's great is that they are color-coded, so just making sure that you have that kind of pinkish, orangish color for articulation. And also, they are color-coded to the tabs as well, so kind of that orange color for articulation and that purple for the phonology assessment. For this tutorial, we're just going to do a very quick overview. So anything kind of unique that a child might do, you want to make sure that you are again referring to that manual to go and check if the child does something super unique. Always make sure that you double check the manual. I know it's not always the most fun to read, but it is your friend and you want to make sure that you are always following the directions correctly. We're going to go ahead and get started. The manual, again, is color-coded for articulation and phonology, but the manual starts on 25, page 25 for the articulation portion. Additionally, you are going to flip to the stimulus book, and your directions, again, like most tests, are right here in bold. You want to make sure that the pictures are facing the child. So that child, remember, for this particular test, can either be 3-0 all the way up to 8-11 are the acceptable age ranges. So this is what the child will see. This is what you will see. Make sure your record form stays behind what you will see and that your child cannot see that. As you are going through, you're going to say, what is this? And ask the child what the picture is. And you're going to flip through all of the pictures doing the exact same thing. And on your record form, what you are going to be looking at are the error patterns that the child has. So all of your IPA is here again so that you can see what is the child doing correctly or incorrectly. What is really awesome about this particular test is that it's specifically looking at the vowels, which sometimes that's not always looked at. So what you're going to do is you're going to indicate any of the errors that the child makes. And here is your legend up here. So if the child says the word 100% correctly, it just gets a little check mark next to it. If they are not responding at all, you're going to put that in R. If it is a dialectical variation, you'll circle the phoneme and put a D above it. So make sure that you're looking at this particular legend to know exactly what it is you need to do. So you're going to mark all the errors that the kid makes. And for this particular test, you're writing down the number of errors that are made. So for each column. So this column, let's say you have 5 errors, you'd put a 5 here. Let's say you have 3 vowel errors, you would put 3 here. And for this column, let's say you have 6, you would put a 6 there. You'll do the same for this one, and then you add everything together to come up with that articulation error score. You also want to look at any of the sounds that the child is not able to produce correctly in any area. So if they don't produce that p sound at all anywhere, you would want to, after administering the test, go and see if they are stimulable for that. So that's what your phoneme stimulability is for. However, if they produce the p sound in any part of the test, you are not going to check for stimulability. Those are the rules for this particular test. So anything they produce incorrectly that you don't hear any other time produced correctly, you'll check for stimulability for. So again, you're just recording all of your errors. This particular articulation error score is going to get put right here on the front of the protocol, so error score. Once you have that error score recorded, that's just a raw score, so we need to change that into a scaled score. So here's where this manual is going to come in handy. You're going to flip all the way to the back. You're going to go to Appendix B of the book, and that starts on, I apologize, you're going to Appendix C of the book, and that starts on page 129. Make sure that you are under articulation when you are doing the articulation test. And also make sure that you are under the correct age. So very common errors that happen when you're first learning the test, and even when you're a seasoned clinician. You want to make sure that you're on the right age. And then one extra step, making sure that you're looking at the difference between a male or a female. So you'll find the error, how many errors did that child make? So that's going to be in this middle section. So let's say the kid made 14 errors. A little trick of the trade. If your kid is between 3.0 and 3.5 and they're a male and they made 14 errors, that is going to give you a scaled score of 9. So that's how you find that. So if you have a child who is, let's say 6'8", you will look between 6'6" and 6'11". And let's say they made 16 errors, which is a lot. So that's going to put you all the way down here at the bottom. And it's a female. That is going to give her a scaled score of 1. So raw scores are in the middle. That's the number of errors. Scaled score is the score that you are going to put right here, scaled score. And then it gives you scaled score plus or minus. Now that can be found directly below. You can use 90 or 95, depending on how you're being taught. And you're going to do plus or minus 1 for this particular one. Okay, so plus or minus 1 from your scaled score. And you'll see plus or minus 1. And a lot of tests that can be different. So in this test, if you have a child who is between 4 and 4.5 and you choose the 95% confidence interval, you're going to do plus or minus 2 for both the males and the females. So if that scaled score is 5, you add and subtract 2, so 7 and 3 would be the answers that go right here. And you would indicate, you put plus or minus 2, indicate that you're using 95, and put your 7 and 3 right here on the form. Some people don't like the percentile rank, but if you do need to report that, that is in the exact same place where you're going to find your scaled score. So remember raw scores, and then your scaled scores and percentile rank. Using that paper again as your little trick, hold it under here, making sure that you're on the right age. The raw score, scaled score, percentile rank would be 9 if you had a female who got a raw score between 18 and 21. They'll get a scaled score of 6, percentile rank of 9. So that's how you're going to find that percentile rank, and that's going to go right here on the front as well. If you want to look at the age equivalent, that is also going to be right back here in your appendix as well. That is going to be in Appendix F, which is on page 165. So on page 165, you'll get the age equivalents, and you will see here what you will do is you will find, and this is for articulation and phonology, you will find the raw score. So keep in mind this is the raw score, and then you find the age equivalent for that child. So if they missed 7 for articulation, that's going to be 311. If they missed 14 for phonology, 311. So both of those are here, and that particular score, that age equivalent, is going to go right here on the front. It will go in the same spot for your phonology. Age equivalent is going to go right here as well. All right, one last thing on this particular form, and keep in mind we're not going over every single piece of this particular test, just the basic overview. So make sure that you're reading the manual for anything else that you might need. One last thing that you want to look at is this articulation severity rating. So you're going to look at the percent of consonants correct, the percent of vowels correct, and the percent of phonemes correct. So this is a math equation. You can find these equations in your manual, exactly what you need to do, on page 27 and on page 28. They go through in detail exactly what you need to do. but essentially you're adding up those errors from down here. So instead of getting that total score and looking at that score as a whole, you're going to look at them separated. And then that's going to give you a severity rating. This is going to be really useful for when you are writing your report. You really want to talk about that severity rating, and also for when you're making your goals as well for this child. Now let's move on to the phonology assessment. If you have already done the articulation assessment and then you're following it up with the phonology assessment, you do not have to administer the first 14 items because you've already done them. So you already have that information in this record form if you've already done them. So just keep that in mind. You don't need to have the child do those 14 again. They're not in the same order, but they are there, so you can get that information from this particular record form. Again, phonology, everything is in purple, so it's the same book. You're just gonna flip to the purple tab, make sure you have the purple protocol, and in the manual, you're going to flip to the purple tab, which is really great. Everything is color-coded. So the exact same concept as your articulation, we're going to look at some pictures. I want you to name them, exactly what you're gonna say to the child. The book still sits the same. The child sees this, you see this, again, keeping that record form behind. You're going to go through, and again, on your protocol, you are simply marking the errors that the child makes. So mark down what does the child do that is incorrect, and find the phonological process that matches that particular error. Pretty straightforward. If the child gives you a D for a G, you just circle that and you say the child is fronting. If they're doing something else, you're just going to indicate that here. Once you have gone through the entire protocol, and this is a little different, it does open up, it's kind of big. Once you've gone through that, you're going to, again, mark those errors right here down at the bottom. You have that raw score that goes right here on the front, and then you're going to use your manual again. You're going to go back to the back of the book, and this time you want to make sure that you are looking at the scaled score for phonology, which is going to be found on page 141. And you're going to follow the exact same process as you did for the articulation. So make sure you're on the right age, make sure you're in the right gender, look for the errors, get that scaled score, get that percentile rank, and then going and finding that age equivalent as well. And again, marking those on the front of this in the same way that you did for your articulation as well. So these tests are administered very similarly. Even the legend you will see is the same up here, which is really nice. So you're not having to change what you're doing. And these tests you would want to administer together to make sure that you are getting a full picture of the child. So hopefully that was a nice quick overview of this particular test. Again, just to reiterate one more time, that was not every little detail of how to administer this test. There are other steps that may need to be taken, especially if the child does something that's a little bit different. So always making sure that you are referring back to your manual whenever you're not sure or if the child does something that might be a little bit unique. So hopefully that helps. Leave it in comments below if you have any questions.